What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates Power Rangers review, and we're taking a look at this year's San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. We are taking a look at the first release for the Dragonzord. So, of course, the Dragonzord is coming in the mainline waves, but they had to do an exclusive, and it made perfect sense. If you're going to do an exclusive for Power Rangers, the black and gold Zords is always the way to go. Now, of course, since we're getting the Dragonzord first in the line, we also get a black and gold one first, too. And this thing comes in just a massive, massive box. This is probably about as big as the Tyrannosaurus Rex Zord box was, but it is a little bit different. So the slipcover is black and gold, of course, you know, to match up with the line. And then you've got the dragon coin on the front. You got the MMPR logo on the back. Pop that slipcover off, and you've got your massive, massive shiny Zord there in the big window. More of that black and gold motif, the vintage lightning bolt style. And then the back of the box gives you a shot of the Dragonzord in this color scheme, as well as a bio for what he is if you happen to have no idea what a Dragonzord is. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates black and gold Dragonzord. So of course, you know, this is a very historic type of exclusive variant for a Zord. We've had this kind of stuff since the original vintage line, and it's not surprising to see it now, and it's certainly not surprising to see it happen at San Diego Comic-Con, just knowing how Super 7 tends to do their exclusive. So this is the perfect kind of exclusive where he doesn't have to take up a mainline slot. This is a pretty weird figure, though, and I say that in like the best way possible. This guy legitimately feels like an actor in a suit, and this thing does look very accurate to me. There are a lot of chunky details here that I am very happy with. It, as a result, does kind of suffer when it comes to articulation. I mean, it has no neck, that kind of stuff. So, you know, let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. We've got a moving jaw that moves like a little, just barely, but there is no neck. There is no head, there is no neck articulation, none of that kind of stuff. He does have arm articulation, but it's really just like up and down, because the arms were locked inside of the chest plate of the Dragonzord. So when this thing actually shuts, you know, when he transforms or anything and combines, the arms go in and then this shuts, so it's inside this cavity. As a result, they kept it that way, and it just goes up and down. I mean, there does feel like there's a peg in there because it does swivel, but that's really it. And then you've got hinges and rotation at the wrist there. What's really crazy on this figure, though, is the torso, because this is something I've been asking for with Ultimates in general for a while now, and that is a full-on ball peg waist. And I've said this a lot, if you're not going to do a torso or diaphragm cut that actually functions, just give it a crazy ball peg. And this thing kind of has that. Like, look, it can actually crunch, and I'm really surprised. That's not, you know, it's not a night and day thing, and it's not the best crunch ever, but for something that's this big and boxy, it really does have a lot of movement. And specifically, it has a lot of shimmy side to side. Like, this is pretty gnarly. It also has full rotation there, so it can kick backwards a little bit. Not too much backwards. It's mostly the forward motion and side to side. I'm really, really happy with that. That's unexpected, to say the least. I was not expecting it to be able to do that. Legs are definitely going to be limited. They only go out like that far. They do kick forward a little bit, and they kick backwards slightly. You can twist them up there. You do have a knee, but, you know, it doesn't do a whole lot. There is a little shimmy at it. You do have rocker down here at the ankle, and then you've got some hinge also. Hinge is pretty decent for these feet, especially for how big they are. And then we have our tail, which is segmented. It's kind of interesting because we're getting two dragon type, you know, Dragon Monster, Dragonzord type exclusives this year, and they both feature pretty large tails. This is not necessarily the same as the Godzilla, but it's pretty close. So this thing does segment, and it does have joints there to allow you to move it around, and it can twist and shimmy at these points if you want it to. It's maybe not as mobile as the Godzilla tail on that Ultimates figure, but it still does have some movement. So I'm happy with how it can move up and down. And it's not that cumbersome either. It doesn't really seem to get in the way. The Godzilla tail, by comparison, kind of needs to sit on the surface that you got the figure on. With the Dragonzord, it does not have to do that. It can hold itself up, and the tail isn't so crazily heavy that it pulls him down. So he's kind of what I expected him to be, which is to say, not the greatest when it comes to articulation, but I also, again, I wasn't really expecting it either, because they are trying to go pretty heavy on making these seem, you know, like a guy in a suit. For better or worse, that kind of seems like the focus here, keeping it accurate in that sense, and I think it works pretty well. It looks really good and has some pretty decent articulation, but it's not, you know, it's not the most dynamic thing by any means that's going to appear on your Power Ranger shelf. Of course, my main focus for these is, generally speaking, just the look and how accurate they can be, especially with these, because I know that they're putting some attention into the Zord accuracy, trying to make them look a certain way and feel a certain way, and then, of course, move a certain way as a result. But I'm pretty happy the way these turns out. They do feel and look super, super chunky like a guy in a suit, and that may not be for everybody, and I'm quite certain that it's not, but I think that's kind of cool. I really like that. It's not stylized, it's not changed up from anything. You know, it's not like Hasbro's Zord Ascension project thing where it's a new, slightly different interpretation on the Zord. This is, you know, kind of like what it looked like in the show. Of course, it's black and gold now, but it looks like what it looked like in the show, and I'm pretty happy with this. It's super chunky, it's super thick, it's really big. I mean, this is a big old figure, but it looks really good. It's very, very beefy, it's very chunky. You know, articulation does suffer because of that, there's no doubt about it, but I think it looks really good. I do think the gold looks a lot better in person than it did in any of the renders and the photography that we've seen. It definitely leads itself to be more of like a yellow gold than like a, you know, a white gold or a super chrome gold, if that makes sense. It's not vac metal, but it is really, really metallic. It is not by any means a flat color. It is super metallic. It's just kind of like on the yellow side of gold, if that makes sense. It kind of comes through almost like a cheddar cheese gold to me, if that makes any sense. But I think it works pretty well, and it definitely kind of bounces off the black really nicely. So they do play off each other really well. And the paint on this thing is pretty decent. It does seem kind of thick in certain places. Like up here, it does look kind of thick to me. But like some of these details, whatever this stuff that it had all over like the belt and then the Z down here is pretty clean. And I just like the way this thing looks. It's really big. It's really chunky. It's awkward. The Dragonzord always looked really, really awkward despite how cool it looked, because it, you know, it's just this big chunk that had arms sticking out of the chest, and it didn't really do a whole lot in the show either. It definitely, you know, was on the clunky side even in the show, and I think, for better or worse, I think that kind of comes through here. It does have this really, really big barrel-type tail, because, of course, the tail does stick together in the show, so that's its own thing. And you've got the spinning tail here. You know, it ended up being like the drill, so you've got the spin on the tail. It does move. But I think overwhelmingly, this is a pretty solid looking figure. I like the head sculpt. It's big, it's bulbousy. I keep going back to things being big, and that's really what it is for this thing. It is a super, super chunky figure, and if you look at that suit, it's a super chunky suit. The Megazord was exactly the same. They were all really big and billowy suits, and this definitely feels like that's what it is. I'm really happy with that. Something about having stuff that is, you know, despite how goofy it kind of is, just to have it as screen accurate as possible really does it for me. And I'm very happy with this. It makes me want to see the real Dragonzord, the actual screen colors, the accurate Dragonzord, even more. I'm super excited to get that in hand now that I know what I'm dealing with a little bit better, because this thing does look really cool. The metallic is super shiny, super bright, super vibrant. Again, it, you know, is maybe super, super yellow gold, but it is still really metallic, and it works really nicely with this red and the black color scheme on top of that. And it is, again, it's a massive, massive figure. We'll do some size comparisons to other stuff to give you an idea of exactly how big it is. But this is something that'll probably be right up your alley if you're interested in something that looks more like the suit and less like anything we've seen in the toy line to date. Now, as far as size comparisons go, let's start with other Ultimates that are, you know, dinosaur-ish in design. So we've got our SDCC Godzilla here on the left. We've got the Wave 1 Ultimates T-Rex Zord on the right. And they're fairly comparable. Godzilla has a bigger tail, Dragonzord has a bigger base body, but they're all relatively similar when it comes to size and shape. It's a little bit taller because of that fin, though. Let's take this guy aside. And here is, because we got to do this, here is the Ultimates Green Ranger. And they don't really scale, obviously. They're not meant to scale with one another, but it lets you know what they look like side by side. And then let's do some other lines. Let's take Godzilla aside. And let's do Cosmic Legions. Here is a Sphexian from Cosmic. Let's take the Green Ranger aside. Let's do a NECA figure. Here's a NECA turtle. There's Leo. Let's take Bug Boy aside. And here is a Masterverse figure. There's Faker. And of course, none of this scales, but it lets you know exactly how big it is. And then let's take Leo aside. Let's do a Marvel Legends figure. Let's do one more. So here is Banshee for your standard 1/12 Hasbro representation. So no doubt about it, this is a really big, bulky, beefy, chunky figure. So it's going to look pretty much huge around just about anything you've got in your collection. Now, as far as accessories goes, this thing comes with a few. It doesn't come with a lot, and honestly, neither does the standard figure. So to start with, we get some extra hands, and that's the main aspect of this. You get some relaxed hands on him in the box. You get a set of fists. Of course, the set is 2. And then you get a set of missile finger hands, because that's the Dragonzord's one big weapon outside of the tail drill and just whomping on people, is the missile fingers, at least when it's not combined with other Zords, so you got that. We get the little Green Ranger that's up here, and it actually looks pretty good. You know, of course, he's playing the Dragon Dagger. Paint's pretty decent on it for something that's super, super tiny, and I like this scale. Like, that looks really good. And then the last thing that we get is the metal dragon coin. You know, just like we got the T-Rex coin with the T-Rex Zord, we're getting a coin with the Dragonzord. And of course, it's got the Zyuranger Z on the back, since it's, you know, a Japanese coin. And that looks really good. It's got some heft to it. It's really big and chunky. The one thing this doesn't come with, and I'm really curious as to why, honestly, it doesn't come with the actual missile firing hands that the standard figure comes with. It's like the one thing that's different. I really wish it was included here. It's not a huge deal, but I wish they would have been consistent across both of them having exactly the same thing, because the hands are going to be a different color. You can't really swap them out unless those are separate pieces, and I'm not sure that they are. So you've got a few things, nothing too crazy. The Dragonzord was just always the Dragonzord. It didn't really have a lot of extra stuff to begin with, but you do get the hands, you get the little Tommy, and it's cool to get these coins even if I don't know what in the world I'm going to do with them. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this guy. If anything, it's gotten me more excited for Zords in the line. I know we've got some hiccups with that coming with the Tiger Zord problem that occurred, but I want to see the screen-accurate Dragonzord, and I want to see the Megazord. I know this isn't going to be for everybody, though, because it's not the most dynamic or articulated figure by any means, but I feel like if they're going for a suit actor, you know, screen suit kind of thing, this is it, and I like that kind of stuff. I know the black and gold is also not for everybody, but I guess I still haven't tired of it too much yet. I'm still on board for black and gold Power Ranger stuff. At the end of the day, I just think it looks cool. It moves pretty well, but it looks really good. It does come with a decent array of accessories. I still wish that it had the missile fingers that the regular release has. I wish it didn't have that missing, but it's got the rest of the stuff, really. So I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, and it's going to look cool next to the T-Rex until we get more stuff. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 SDCC exclusive black and gold Dragonzord. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.